So in 2012, I began working on a story about young pedophiles who want help battling their attractions, which I'd spend like the next 2 years working on. I feel for those of you in here who work in academia, 2 years on a project isn't that long, but as a journalist, it's a really long time. Um, yeah, and by far one of the most common questions I got throughout the 2 years I was reporting this is why? And that question was really simple to answer. I'd never heard of the concept of non-offending pedophiles before, and once I did, I was really intrigued and I wanted to know more. The very first person I actually spoke with was Fred Berlin, who I think he spoke today. Hey Fred, how's it going? Um, because I was pretty green about this whole pedophilia thing. And so it was during this discussion that I learned that Elizabeth was back establishing the Moore Center for the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse, which is why it's so exciting to be here. Um, and I gave her a call, and we just got to talking about prevention. And I feel that prevention, I mean, we're all in this room to talk about it today in many regards, but at the time, and in my experience, I'd never heard the word prevention used in regards to pedophilia. It was always the prosecution of sex offenders and not prevention. And so it kind of began what would become the 2 year project that involved gaining access to a group of undetected, self identified pedophiles in their teens and early 20s and kind of learning about what life was like for them. The reporting culminated in a story on This American Life and a print piece in Matter, and ultimately it posed two questions. The first was, could there be a better way to treat pedophiles who want help? And what can we do to help facilitate this? Um, and also, I discovered the extent of people's misconceptions about pedophilia, and more importantly, and I think that's something that may be interest to people in this room, it really taught me how it impacts barriers to getting help for people who genuinely want it. And so I want to talk with you today about what I learned about pedophilia, specifically as it pertains to young men and sometimes women in their teens and early 20s, public perception, and what I learned about the hurdles to accessing this help, kind of like a behind the scenes of my reporting.
And I was just very nervous. I knew exactly what was coming. I'd known for so long, that I was going to walk in there and what I was going to say. Um, and I'd rehearsed it in my head.
And what was this script you'd been playing over and over in your head?
I'm a pedophile and I'm addicted to child pornography. And I remember I walked in there and we started talking. And then she kind of said, so what are you here for? And I said, well, I'm very anxious. And she said, well, why are you anxious? And my heart was beating. I'd never been so terrified in my life. But I uttered the words. I said, well, this is difficult to say. But I'm a pedophile and I'm addicted to child pornography.
But lucky for Adam, his mother actually was supportive, and she got him a new therapist, one who was more equipped to deal with the situation. Um, Though at the same time, whilst Adam had more success with the second therapist, for him it wasn't really enough. He wanted to speak to people he could relate to, which I think is a very human need. And he began to reach out to other young men and women online, and eventually, for lack of something similar, had kind of inadvertently formed a support group for pedophiles, self identified pedophiles in their teens and early 20s. I'm going to play you one more clip, and this one's a little bit briefer. But in this next clip, we're given a little bit more detail about how Adam's group functions. So again, sit back, this is like 2 minutes, so not quite as long. At 17, Adam started searching online for other guys like himself. Young men struggling to deal with their attraction to kids. And some responded. They got to talking online, and soon there were a bunch of them communicating on a daily basis. Before long, Adam realised that he had inadvertently formed a support group for young pedophiles. Adam's group absolutely takes a moral stand. A few times, he's found himself trying to convince potential members of the group that having sex with children is wrong. And occasionally Adam has to turn someone away.
There was one time someone came in, and he admitted to me pretty much right away that he'd done some sexual things with a 5-year-old kid, and right then and there I said, we can't have you. You know, First off, they're a risk, but what's more is I think that I'll admit I have a bias. I think we are better people than those who go out and hurt kids.
Again, Adam created this group because there was nothing really available for him like this. And people tell me that I was brave to do this story, which I don't really buy. I think it's a bit bullshit, because I'm a journalist and it's a compelling story. And so I'm really thankful. And again, I know you're listening, Adam. Thanks again. I've said it a million times. But I think I'm just so appreciative of their trust in me. And it's just been a huge luxury as a journalist. But my biggest takeaway is they really want help. Many of these young men and women really want help, and many people in this audience really want to help. Um, in our own ways. And I think there's like a wall stopping, preventing some of this help, and it's comprised of certain parts. One part is mandated reporting, and I don't have an answer, and I don't want to diminish mandated reporting because it's brought countless instances of child sexual abuse and neglect to light. I don't have an answer, but I think we need to keep talking about what we can do to help kind of bridge these gaps and have people who want help and want to talk, make them able to do that.